Hello, everyone. It's Priya Bates coming live from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where I'm excited to be part of the session today. And today we're going to be talking about table talk, the strategic conversations needed to keep or earn your seat at the table. I did this presentation recently at the PRSA Connect conference in Phoenix, and I think it really resonated with a lot of the internal communicators that were there, communication professionals, and that's something that I'm really excited about the changes that we're seeing in the profession as a whole. I think we see some really great progress in the UK and Europe. We might be playing a little bit of catch up here in North America from a value for internal communication perspective. But personally, I've been dedicated to internal communication for the last 20 years of my career. So today we're going to talk about a seat at the table. We've been having this conversation for the last 25 years that I have been in the profession. Everybody wants that coveted seat. And I think that when I ask an audience of internal communication professionals, whether they feel they have the seat, we probably have about 25% that put up their hand. A lot of folks are around the tables, a variety of tables. They're talking to their organizations and being involved in important business initiatives like reorganizations and mergers and acquisitions, brand launches, new product launches, HR and benefits conversations, and technology transformations. But the one thing that I often ask communication professionals to answer, one of the questions I always ask them to answer, is how many feel that they're only invited to the table when all the communication decisions have been made. And that's something that I think is really important for us to think about and acknowledge. I often, when I do, provide a PowerPoint, I often show an image of a waiter who is taking an order at the table. And I want you to really think about, when you're sitting at the table, are you at the conversation, sitting at the table, having the conversation and being involved in the discussion and decision making, or are you really an order taker? And that's the visual I ask people to put in their minds, because if what you're doing is coming to the table with a menu of items that people can choose from, or you're simply taking an order and then going away and delivering it, you'll never be asked to be part of the conversation and the decision making. So I challenge communication professionals to not simply be the order takers. That simply taking notes and going away and delivering what's been asked is a tactical role, and you'll always be seen as that, as long as that's where you're focusing your time and attention. So really ask yourself, who do you want to be? The one sitting at the table contributing to the conversations, or the one simply taking the order and serving? And there's going to be different behaviors that are going to be required. The one thing I'm really excited about is, it doesn't matter if it was, research that was done 10 years ago. Forbes did a great study on the importance of communication and its link to success, or research that we've seen from Gatehouse recently. I think it was the 2018 study that they did, that really, establishes that, 7 out of 10 leaders, they understand the value IC brings as trusted advisors, but they don't really know what good looks like. We're still struggling with doing the right strategic work. And I've been seeing those conversations as a consultant with a company called Inner Strength Communication here in Toronto. I'm having great conversation with executives with a variety of organizations, around North America primarily, who really understand that communication is the gap. They just don't know what they need to do to fix it in order to meet their business goals. So there's an acknowledgement and an understanding now, but what there is a gap in is the delivery from practitioners. So I often say, is it really the seat and the table we're talking about, or is it really about opening doors? What we're finding is that it's the conversations we're having with internal communication professionals is not as much about capability and capacity as it is about courage and confidence. It's about having having the courage to have the right conversations at the table in order to drive the profession, the discipline, ourselves forward in our organizations. And it requires courage. So this is the conversation we're going to have today, is how do we change our language? How do we change what we're talking about? How do we change our behavior in order to earn or keep that seat at that coveted table that we talk about? So let's start with number one. I've got about 10 points here. First, we need to believe in our profession. So many of us are referred to as the communicator and the writers and the doers, and we really need to change our language, myself included, because I find myself, referring to myself as the communicator often, and I'm really very consciously trying to change that conversation. We need to believe we are communication professionals and introduce ourselves as such. And part of that is the language and how we introduce ourselves and our expertise at the table. But another part of it is the growth of certifications. When I sit down in a group of communication professionals and say, who has taken the time to be certified, whether it's the CMP and SCMP, communication management professional and strategic communication management professional programs that have been launched by the Global Communication Certification Council, managed by IABC. Those that have taken the time to be ABCs or APRs, those who have gotten the credentials from CIPR, and a number of chartered professionals. The number of people who put their hands up in the communication professional are very, very small, usually fewer than 10%. Take the time to be credentialed. And I want to challenge you to get out there and meet the global standard of what it means to be a communication professional. Look at the programs. It does do a lot. And if I ask HR professionals how many are certified, usually we're seeing 40 to 50% who are putting their hands up, a lot more than communications. So we really want to embrace the certification that's out there and establish the organization and the profession as a true profession that has standards. We also need to increase business knowledge. There was a great study by IC Collective. I recommend that you go out there to take a look at IC Collective, called The Next Level. And one of the things that really came out was that senior communication professionals, C-suite members, and teachers advocate business acumen from different perspectives as a prerequisite to be recognized as a trusted advisor by senior managers. Our profession needs to understand our businesses. And as a client, as a consultant, it's amazing to be able to go in and talk to the executives about what keeps them up at night, what really is their pain points in the organization. When I was inside an organization, I'd encourage my team members to spend days with truck drivers and cashiers and butchers and bakers, because we worked in a grocery retailer, to really understand what the conversations were on the ground so that we can bring that point of view and perspective to leaders. Having that conversation is something that's unique that we can bring to the table that really makes a difference and tells the leaders that we understand the business and we understand how we need to get them to success. We need to stop being invisible. I remember a conversation that I had personally with an executive who said, "Why aren't you front and center?" And I took great pride as an internal communication professional to say, I need to be behind the scenes. I'm not expected to be front and center. I make sure my organization, my leaders, and my the employees and the organization is successful, but I'm supposed to play this invisible role. And he looked at me and he said, your team is integral to every initiative that goes on in this organization. You need to be out there front and center, proudly talking about your impact on the business, however small, so that people start seeing that progress. It's something, I have a blog that I wrote not too long ago called Learning to Brag. And it's something that even, we take advantage of as consultants who aren't inside organizations every day. We need to come to the table and say, here's what we're going to do for you. with business metrics aligned to it. Here's milestones along the way in terms of what we're delivering. And then at the end, this is what we delivered, and here's how we think we can improve it. It's part of the consulting process. It should be part of your internal process as well. I always say we need to have the brave conversations. And that's a combination of being able to say no to the stuff that really doesn't matter, and being able to say yes to the stuff that does. I see so many communication professionals who will fight for the tactics because that's where they associate their value, versus fighting for the strategic projects that they know are going to get them the visibility and allow them to have the impact that's possible. I want to be in the middle of customer experience initiatives. I want to be part of technology implementations that are integral to organizational success, because there's too many Microsoft 365 implementations that are going wrong because communication isn't involved holding hands with our information technology partners. So really putting your hand up for those projects and asking to be at the table and helping with those initiatives will make a big difference. We need to learn to let go. We're starting to see a variety of tools that are out there right now, platforms that are allowing for the democratization of communication. And I always say that our greatest power as communication professionals is not to communicate on behalf of our organizations and our leaders, but influence how our organizations, our leaders, and our people communicate every day, especially in this era of social media. We want to make sure that our people and our organizations have the tools they need to be incredibly effective communicators, communication professionals. I have to correct myself on that. We really need to embrace that power and not see the stuff as being our power. The power is in our ability to influence. We need to build partnerships. For the last 20 years in this profession, I have been involved in, hearing conversations about ownership, battles between HR and IT and PR and digital comm and marketing about who owns the intranet and who owns the intranet and who owns employee engagement and who owns this specific initiative. And I really, a long time ago decided it's not ownership that's important, it's partnership, because I've never worked on a very successful initiative that didn't have the right people cross-functionally around the table. Too many silos in all of the organizations that exist. If we can be that great connector and bring those partnerships and bring people to our tables and put our hands up to help at theirs, I think that'll go a great way in terms of, setting the example in terms of the power of the collaboration and the collective that we want to encourage to lead to business success. So, the partnerships with human resources, information technology, PR, with the various groups. Different ones of us would lead at different times depending on the initiative, but we were all there together, and that was really important. I always say that, we need to love the art as well as the science. Again, too many of us feel that our value is associated with the stuff that we create, whereas our value really is about the impact and influence we have in the organization. When I'm on my website, it's innerstrengthcommunication.com. There are a number of briefing documents and templates that you can use, but I insist even my most junior employees going out there and always starting with a brief that starts with, what does success look like? And honestly, if success looks like getting the memo out, we haven't thought this through and we aren't ready. Success has to be tied to a business impact. And once we understand what that is, we can ask the right questions and have the conversations to then bring back, implementation tactics and measurement that establishes who we are. That's the science. It's a little bit of the math. It's the stuff we're not as comfortable with, but it's so integral to be able to bring back proof and bring back the results to the organization to demonstrate our impact. We've had lots of conversations about inviting ourselves to the table. That's the one, sometimes we need to create our own tables. I found that as a great opportunity, whether those are editorial councils for our communication programs and vehicles that we're in charge of, the intranet, the new employee app, really bringing a group together cross-functionally to come together and work together. The more you invite them to your tables, they're going to see the value and invite you to theirs. One of my more successful projects when I worked for Canada's largest private sector employer, leading internal communication, was to bring together a cross-functional team to establish that organization as an employer of choice. And being able to gather all of the subject matter experts in the organization, work collaboratively on this project and submission to be a top 100 employer, and then succeed that first year, and they've been successful for the last 10 years. It was really a game changer for us to be seen as an integral enabler for the organization. So, and then the other piece is sometimes you're creating your own table, but sometimes you're bringing your own seat. Invite yourself. If you don't ask, you don't know what the response is going to be. I often, will hear about an initiative and I'll come forward and say, I would love to make sure somebody on my team or myself are part of that initiative in order to drive the success. We need to take some steps to open doors. I have what I call my 5 eyes. We start with implementation at the bottom. We go to interaction, that's our surveying and our conversations, our business knowledge. We then move to integration, and integration is connecting the dots, making sure that everybody is aligned or pointing out when we're not, actions, behaviors, programs, and delivery. Influence is that other piece where we're really, working with managers and leaders to influence the conversation and providing content to our employees to influence the conversation externally as well, and influence customer experience. It's all connected. Everything we do is connected. And then impact. Until we are ready to be held accountable to impact the organization, then we're not ready to be at the table. And we need to ask ourselves, it's all we want to do is focus on the tactics, then stay there, but be happy there. Not enough, I think I'm done personally with the complaining about why we don't get respect without any actions that drive that success in the first place. At the end of the day, we need to believe in ourselves and believe in our power as a profession. I always say we use communication solutions and expertise to solve business problems. And if what we're doing simply doesn't matter, then we don't waste our time on it, quite honestly. As consultants or or on the inside, my philosophies have been the same. We talk about enabling, engaging, and empowering our employees to navigate change and deliver results. A little bit more, compelling than we're the communicator or the writer, or we make you look good. So if there are, I did say that I'm going to be available on the chat for questions. I will be going over there as soon as I can, as soon as somebody tells me I should. But I really enjoyed the time with you today, and I hope that something that I said resonated. I do have a PowerPoint presentation that I'm happy to send to H&H to be able to send your way, and good luck with fighting for that seat and bringing people to your tables so that we can actually have an impact on our organizations, because at the end of the day, that's what matters. I'm going to actually look at the stream to see. Oh, thank you. I've got some people are asking me questions, I think. Okay, and I am going to end this stream and go to the chat cafe right now. So I look forward to talking to you there. Goodbye.